Welcome to Vegan Business Talk with Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business. Hello and welcome to episode 44 of Vegan Business Talk. I'm Katrina Fox, journalist, author, media and PR coach, copywriter, editor and proofreader, and founder of Vegan Business Media, a content, events and training platform providing success tips for vegan business owners and entrepreneurs. In this episode, I interview Leigh-Chantelle from Epicentre Equilibrium, a social media and content creation specialist from Brisbane, Australia. Leigh-Chantelle has run the online vegan community Viva La Vegan since 2005, bringing positive education, information and vegan outreach to a worldwide audience through her blogs and videos. She's the author of several books, including expert tips from vegan athletes, fitness fanatics and exercise enthusiasts. There's a Vegan in the Kitchen, Viva La Vegan's easy and tasty plant-based recipes, and What Do Vegans Eat? She's also produced 3 recipe calendars, a plant-based detox diet ebook, and a collection of other recipe ebooks. For 4 years, she ran the not-for-profit environmental awareness Green Earth Group, which put on 2 successful all-vegan environmental festivals and many smaller events in Brisbane. An accredited, although no longer practicing, naturopath, nutritionist and Western herbalist, speaker and consultant, Leigh-Chantelle brings together a diverse skill set to help small business owners with social media strategy, online marketing and content creation. In this interview, she talks about the importance of overcoming your fear of selling and how a throwaway offer of help to a vegan brand helped Leigh-Chantelle launch a new career, how to stand out above the noise on social media, why you must create your own high-quality branded content and how to do it without becoming overwhelmed, ensuring your content is congruent with your brand, how to create visuals for products, services or industries that don't lend themselves naturally to strong imagery, online etiquette tips, and much more. Here's the interview with Leigh-Chantelle from Epicentre Equilibrium. Hello, Leigh-Chantelle. It's lovely to have you on the show today.
Hello, Katrina. Thank you very much for having me.
So let's kick off with the first question that I ask everyone is the why. You know, when we're running mission-driven businesses or purpose-driven businesses, tell us why you do it.
Well, I guess if I take it back to why I originally started Viva La Vegan, it was because people wanted me to. So there was no real reason coming from myself other than what other people wanted. So it started off to promote my recipe calendars that I had, and people kept asking me for things. They kept on saying, oh, can you put some recipes online? Can you do a blog about this? Can you put up that a review or those photos that you took from that place you went and had lunch at or had dinner? And I thought, yeah, okay, I'll put that up. And I was running my Leigh-Chantelle website with mostly all my music at that time, and it just started getting a bit too different from just the music stuff. So I thought I'll start a new website, and that was really what happened originally. And it's really hard to explain that for people, like say 10 years ago when veganism wasn't a big thing and no one knew of the word. So it's hard to understand that for some people. But yeah, that was why originally. And now I guess I'm doing my speaking and consulting and training for people, and that includes some vegan aspects. And that's because I really love speaking, I love traveling, and I love just, live and learn, or learning from other people and teaching other people things that I know.
Fantastic. I love that. So let's talk about, because I know you've got, as we mentioned, you've got vivalavegan.net, which you've had for over 10 years. You've had your Leigh-Chantelle website, and you've also got your sort of latest incarnation, which is Epicentre Equilibrium. Did I say that right? Yeah, cool. So tell us some of the key challenges that you found when you first started out, when you were first starting up your business, which I guess would have been at the time the Viva La Vegan.
Yeah, well, I guess the biggest challenge then was, like I sort of said before, working out where it should go and what it was, because really there wasn't any lifestyle vegan website then. 10 years ago, it was pretty much just Animal Lib and the Vegan and Vegetarian Societies. That was about it, especially.
That's here in Australia.
Especially in Australia, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
There was a couple in the States, but really there wasn't too much. So the challenge was just working out what worked, I guess. And with the 10th anniversary, I relaunched a lot of stuff from the website, and some things just didn't work anymore. For example, the forum used to be really popular. People just don't really use forums anymore. So that was one of the things that went. We also had like a vegan mentors section, and we took that out as well because a lot of people are just finding mentors online. So I think when starting out, it was just working out the things that were needed, and that came from literally every single thing with Viva La Vegan came from people saying, hey, can you put a search bar on your website? I was trying to find something and couldn't find it. Yep, okay, I'll get my web people to do that. Do you mind putting some videos to some of those recipes you do? Okay, yeah, I'll do that. You know, those Q&As that you do that, when we've been interacting with non-vegans, could you put them into video or even record them as podcast? Yeah, okay. So it was really just going with the flow, and that's pretty much my life goes, to be honest.
Well, that's actually a really good example actually of responding to consumer demand, because a lot of people, and I think a lot of content creators, they put out what they want to put out, and it's kind of like, well, I'd like to do this, so therefore I'll do it. Whereas what I actually really like about that is that you very much responded to, okay, this is what your clients, your potential customers, this is what they wanted, and you responded to a demand. So I think that's actually quite a good example and quite a good lesson for people to know. So what about as you've moved more into, because Viva La Vegan is kind of like almost like a publishing arm, it's got the blog, the video, the podcast, your books and stuff, whereas Epicentre Equilibrium is more about your services based work that you're doing. So in terms of that, what were some of your challenges in starting that out? Because that's a relatively new-ish business, even though you've been doing speaking and consulting for a fair bit of time, but this particular business is fairly new. So what were some of the kind of challenges involved there, and how have you overcome them?
So from that, I've always been giving talks, and I started giving talks when someone asked me to give a talk. And then I had some big vegan events that I organised in Brisbane. So I had some vegan festivals in Brisbane, and from that I became quite well known in the vegan and event sort of industries, because we had 3,000 to 4,000 people at the first event, and that was all done with no budget and mostly my marketing. So that was a pretty big thing to sort of launch at people, and people had known me from the vegan sort of area for a while, but that was like my big hurrah, I guess. So that happened, and I got a lot of people saying, oh, can you help me with that? Could you do that for me? So that was sort of the start of it. And then the main sort of thing where I decided I'd actually do it for a living was Lee Coates from Cruelty Free Super, a superannuation company in Australia. When he launched it, he came to Brisbane just to meet me and get a little testimonial to put on the website. And I vividly remember, because I said to him at the end, oh, if you ever need any social media marketing, let me know. And it was pretty much just a throwaway comment at the end of the day when we were saying goodbye. And he goes, yeah, I do. Can you send me a quote? And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. And so I rang. I have a couple of friends, non-vegans, but they're in IT and communication, online marketing scene. They've worked with Google, SEO and stuff in the past. past. So I had a couple of people who would give me advice with those sort of things as well. And I rang up my friend Dave and I'm like, oh, what do I charge? What do I do? What should I, what's the thing? I asked my friend Jackson's put together, some official paperwork that we could both sign, and it was all, official and legal, and that was it. And it's just sort of grown, to be honest, and more people that want my skills find me. And I think in regards to the vegan stuff and my business stuff, I think the people that need me find me.
I really like that. And I guess that's a real testament to, particularly for someone who's an expert in their field and for the service providers listening. I think that's a really great example of, just putting yourself out there, doing what you do, getting a reputation for being someone who's good at what you do and deliver. And you're absolutely right. Then, people then will find you and seek you out. So I think that's fantastic. I love the way that turned out. I didn't know that story.
Happened.
And you and I both know Leigh, who's absolutely lovely. And isn't that's brilliant. And I love the fact as well, that's a really good example of not being afraid to mention that to someone. You know what I mean? You weren't doing like a hard sell kind of thing. It was just like you said, just mentioning to someone, by the way, I do this. If you need some help, give me a call. And why not? And that got you a fabulous client and obviously a great service for Leigh, which he needed. So it was a really good fit, because sometimes there's some ickiness around selling, or being afraid to sell. But I think that's a really great example of a wonderful exchange that's benefited both parties.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you and I have spoken about this quite a bit in the past, and it's like working out how to approach people, or knowing when the hard sell or not to sell. And I think it's really important to have friendships and meet people. And I know heaps of people that wouldn't have even bothered to meet Leigh and Sue when they came to Australia. But I'm really sociable. I like meeting new people. I find it really interesting just finding out what makes people tick. So I think those things are also positives in my corner that help.
Absolutely, because the whole thing about people like to do business with people they like and trust.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really great example. Excellent, thanks for sharing that. So let's talk about social media marketing. What are some of the key social media marketing challenges facing vegan business owners at the moment?
Well, because it's a niche thing, or even because it's on trend at the moment, that's always a bit of a hard thing to work around. So I see a lot of people that post half-naked photos of themselves and lots of raw food, or this is what I ate in a day or something, and that seems to get the most sort of interaction. So to me, I personally think that it's a challenge if we can't get the true core values of veganism across and the true ethics of the movement. So, one of the talks I give is about ethics beyond the plate, and I'm really passionate and very vocal about talking to people about things that exist, not just with what food you eat, or not just about how pretty your smoothie or your plate looks when you eat it. And it's a really hard thing, because that's the things that get the most engagement. Like, so many of my friends will say, they'll post something about, a protest that's happening or some animal rights related stuff. You get one comment or one like. Post a photo of, something really pretty or a nice smoothie, and you'll get hundreds of likes. And it's somehow trying to balance those two, whereas getting the most important things across, and what I would think are the ethical sort of things across to people, and still getting that interaction and still getting people to like those things.
Because I guess, just kind of playing a bit of devil's advocate there, I suppose, like for a vegan food brand, for example, that is selling smoothies. I mean, obviously that's a positive for them. Or that's kind of like, they've got to do that to get into their business. I mean, I get where you're coming from, and obviously I think a lot of business owners, particularly vegan business owners and entrepreneurs, they are activists at heart, and they're running their businesses, to make a difference in the world. But then again, I suppose they've also, in order to run that business, they've got to have people engaging. So I guess it's that tricky thing of weighing that up. So from a business perspective, and I get that from the ethical thing stance, and I'm glad you've shared that. What about in terms of just from a business perspective, so getting people to engage with their brand? What are some of the key challenges around social media in regards to that?
Well, there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of things that are being shared. So it's how to stand out, I guess. And I always bring that back to people. You need to be creating your own content, your own branded content. It's even better. And it needs to be something that's of value to people, that people will go to your channel or your page to see something that gives them something. And it's something that needs to be shareable. And they're the things that people need to be creating. And it's like people are time poor. People don't want to do this. It's easy just to, share a meme that someone else has created. And, I think they're the biggest challenges, being seen and using time more effectively online.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was going to be my next question, was that whole thing about, that nowadays, and you and I have discussed this before, there's just so much way more content in quotes out there. So how can people do that? Like, especially I guess new businesses coming in, sometimes I might feel a bit disheartened and think, well, why bother? Because there's already, so much going on. So what, in your opinion, what can they do to stand out? What are some of the key things, or the, some little tips that they can do to make their content stand out?
I think, like I said, your own branded content is really the top thing, and it needs to be professional too. So I've just seen a few examples of people not taking very professional photos lately, and it just looks really bad. And this is on their website, this is on their social media, and the lighting's really bad. The photos are grainy. That's not good enough. Pretty much everyone has a camera in their phone nowadays that takes pretty good photos. So I don't think people have that sort of excuse anymore. It's really cheap to get videos. It's really cheap to get video cameras or cameras, microphones, things like that. That's cheap. And people can do that. And I think people need to just up their sort of professionalism with some of their posts. And I think also you need to work out what you want to be presenting. Like some people that I consult, their website or their page will be quite chaotic and there's no real theme. So, for example, they're selling vegan chocolate, for example, but then there's all these other quotes or memes that don't necessarily relate to food or even vegan food. So you need to get that sort of balanced a bit as well. And what would other things be? It needs to deliver a message to people. So I think another thing that's really important is giving someone a story or letting them know behind the scenes. People love that sort of stuff. So, our friend Jessica Bailey from the Cruelty Free Shop, she's just about to open a store up here in Brisbane and another one in Canberra. And she's sharing photos of, when the flooring's getting put in, when the ceiling's been painted, when, all the shelving's been put in. These are really important sort of things to engage with people and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And people get involved and people are, I remember when it looked like that. I can't wait for the opening, People love that.
They do. You're absolutely right. I'm really glad you shared that. I think it's raised some really good points there. Is one, yes, keep it hot. Like you say, you don't have to be a professional photographer, but you're right, badly lit and grainy photos are not, they're no longer acceptable. And you're absolutely right. People do want to, get excited as well, particularly if you're about to launch, is to share the story of your launch. And I've seen, Jess is doing a great job of that. Like, like a photo of an empty store. And then now suddenly, it's got shelves in and now it's got products in and it's starting to look like, like you say, the Cruelty Free Shop. Those are brilliant. Those are really, really good tips there. Thank you. So social media, as we know, it's changed a lot since its inception. We've got new platforms coming in left, right and centre, and older platforms changing their rules, changing their algorithms and throwing everyone into chaos. What tips, advice or strategies can you offer vegan business owners and entrepreneurs to make the best use of social media nowadays?
It would be working out what is best suited for you and how you can use them in the most effective way to either sell your products or get the word out about whatever you're trying to promote. So those things would be related to, say, for example, if you sell shoes or if you sell smoothies, they're going to be visual sort of things. So you'd be really you'd be great to be on, say, Instagram or Pinterest and places like that, because they're primarily visual places. And with that in mind, visual things, as in videos or photos, get shared a lot more and have more interaction. So I would suggest people use a lot more of them just in any social media and in day-to-day sharing online. But I would suggest people, especially if you've got a website and you've got, your Google Analytics set up, have a look online. What's getting you the most interaction? How are people getting to your site? If it's, I know, for example, one of the biggest ones for me is Pinterest. And Pinterest, a lot of people forget about, but to me, it's like one of the best ones, I would say, because if you're not aware of Pinterest, you pin something, and I would pin that, say, from my website. And when you go onto Pinterest, if you like a pin, you can click on it. And when you click on it, it actually goes to where the photo is hosted in the beginning, which, say, would be my website. So this is like the only social media site that actually links back to the original post. And if you're posting things from your website, I think that's amazing. And I don't understand why more people don't use it. And especially because the majority of things on Pinterest are repinned. So it's something like over 80% of things on Pinterest are people repinning other people's content. So you're going to have much more interaction on there than, say, Instagram, which is mostly just people putting photos of themselves or whatever they want to share.
Okay, now that's a good point, actually. And I must admit, I'm not on Pinterest. I've been dabbling with Instagram, but that's an interesting one that you get, like, with the whole repins and stuff. So that's good to know. What about for service products? So say someone's not selling kind of like, a sexy product like shoes or fashion or food. Maybe they're, a service provider or, a health coach or, maybe they're an accountant, maybe they're a vegan accountant or, something like that. How does that sort of work? Or even Leigh, you mentioned, the cruelty-free super fund. Like, does that work with those kind of businesses, or would they be better focusing on other types of platforms?
Yes, they would be better focusing on other platforms. And, money's a hard sell. Cruelty-free super has been a hard sell. And, because it's not cool, it's not pretty. You can't put a nice photo of a smoothie and a selfie on, about money and superannuation, can you? So, and it has to be way more professional and very, you have to stick to certain rules within those sort of industries. So we use, for cruelty-free super, it's Facebook, Google Plus, and YouTube and Twitter. So they all are quite good. And we also, if you think out, I try to encourage people to think outside the square. So say, for example, with cruelty-free super, not many visuals. How do we create visuals that can share something with people? So one of those things would be, Leigh did a few Q&A questions on video, and we then created them into podcasts. And I definitely suggest podcasts to money-related or those sort of industries. And we also got testimonials from people. So we filmed a few of those on video, and we actually got short testimonials that we made into an image. So it was branded up, had testimonials, but we were able to use that information in a visual way. So they would be things that I would suggest to people. And pretty much everyone needs to be on Facebook, whether or not you're getting the reach that you used to, whether or not you like it, whether or not there's all these security issues. And but that's where most people are, and that's still going to be the primary place to be.
Excellent. That's really good advice. And I love that, because sometimes business owners kind of think, you've got to be everywhere. Like I interviewed Damien Clarkson recently, and, I was saying, I got this email, about, Snapchat for business. That's the new thing. And I'm just like, oh my God, I just don't want to know about one more. So I like the fact that you said, really focus on, where your clients are, where are the majority of your clients going to be hanging out, rather than just worrying about, I've absolutely got to be everywhere. Because we touched on that, feeling overwhelmed, having to create all these different types of content. So we'll talk about Facebook in a little bit, but let me just ask you then, so how much time per week or per day do you recommend business owners work on their social media, particularly if they're doing it themselves, say, to begin with?
Well, Okay, so when you say social media, I would include content creation in that as well. So you want to be creating your own content. So you need to work out what you have already, or what you can use with what you have. Say a lot of people have product photos that they haven't done anything with. So I'll go to see clients, and a lot of them will have hundreds and hundreds of photos they've never done anything with. So I'll show them something to use, like say picmonkey.com is a really easy photo editing website you could use. So you can literally just drag your photo or upload your photo into the website and put on a bit of branding and put in your logo onto that. You could do, for example, a photo of nutritional yeast and list all the positives for it and what you can use it for, and brand it up for your shop. There's so many things that you could do like that. So when I focus on social media time, I would be thinking about that. So you need to create all this content that you can use first. That's step one. And if you don't have those things, you need to get someone to create videos or photos for you. If you don't know how to do those things online, like it's very simple. But if you don't know how to do them, you need to get someone to do it. And that's, I do a lot of content creation for people because people just can't handle learning new things or adding something else into their life. It seems so overwhelming.
Exactly. Yeah, I do a similar thing as well. Yeah, help. Often that's because that's the thing that business owners say. It's kind of like, even if they wanted to do it, do you know what I mean? They're so busy kind of, running their actual business
Exactly.
that they don't have the time to, write a blog or create a vlog or do all this kind of thing.
But once it's done, that's it. Like, you don't have to do anything more with it. You've got these testimonials branded up. You've got these Q&A videos. You've got this text for a blog, or, when you do a Q&A, you've got it as a podcast. You could get someone to transcribe it for you, and then that's a blog or that's your ebook. There's so many different things that you can do from just one piece of content that I really want people to grasp, and I really hope that's what they can take away from this. They can lead to so many different things. And when you've got those things, they're there already in folders. Hopefully you have folders and it's all organized nicely so you can find it easily. But that's what you need. And then from that, you work out some sort of schedule, or some sort of, like, Monday I share a blog, Tuesday I share my video, Wednesday's the podcast, Thursday's a photo from the store, Friday's a testimonial or a quote from someone. And you work that out, what you want to do, and you work out the times that are best suited to whatever the social media channel is to share, and then you share them. And you sit down once a week or once a month or once every few months and you schedule all those things. So I use Hootsuite, for example, and you schedule whatever you can. And also keep in mind, you want to be going onto these social media channels and interacting with other people. It's not just all about, sharing stuff to people all the time. You have to interact with people. You have to be social. That's the main word in social media marketing. Be social, interact with other people. If someone asks you a question, get back to them. So you have to do that as well. And, for example, myself, I'm better with boundaries now, and I've set these sort of things in my life. So I'm having a bit more of a life, and I'm doing things that are bringing me more joy, I guess, or setting myself up for, success or financial sort of things in the future. And social media, being on it all the time, it's a waste of time in a lot of aspects. So you want to be using your time effectively, and you want to just get into social media, post whatever you need to, interact with a few people, share a few other people's things, and get off.
That's really good advice. Actually, it's so easy, isn't it, to get into that, particularly Facebook. I find from if you start to sort of scroll through your feed a bit, and a little cute, of course now these videos autoplay, with cute cats, whatever. I'll just watch that, and then by the time it's like, oh my god, the whole morning's gone. I could have done X, Y, and Z.
I know.
So what I'm hearing for you, Leigh-Chantelle, is like you recommend not just creating content on the hop every single week, but perhaps doing marking out maybe a day or something, or a 2 days, whatever. and creating a whole load of content so that you've got it, and then spend the rest of the time like scheduling it out so it lasts you for a while, so you're not kind of constantly under pressure to actually create original content, say every single week or every day.
Exactly.
Is that right?
And all you have to do, like I've done it with Viva La Vegan, I've done it for other clients. Once a year, you get together and you sit down. I film videos for people. So once a year, and then you've got 12 videos for someone that you can use one a month for the rest of the year.
Fantastic.
And you have to think about these sort of things, and it's using time effectively, which people don't seem to have any concept of nowadays. They just think we need to be online, we need to be connected all the time, and that's me living. Well, it's not. And you need to be really aware of these sort of things, because you want to be putting it into your business or setting yourself up to, get where you want to be in regards to success or whatever. And all these other things that can take up our time and distract us are just that, distractions.
Very good advice. Very good advice. I like this. I'm thinking I need to apply some of this to myself even. So let's talk a little bit about Facebook, because Facebook has changed. Like you say, people are still on it. It's still a very popular platform. It's certainly my favorite social media platform, even though most journalists tend to like Twitter. I don't like 140 characters, drives me nuts. So I like Facebook. But anyway, but like with pages, like for example, we've seen lots of changes. And I think the latest figure I saw was that if you share organically from your page, it's now getting to be as low as almost 1% of your followers are likely to see it. So a lot of the time now it's pay to play, Facebook ads. Now some business owners swear by Facebook ads, others find them complex and say that they don't work. So tell us about what successes have you had either with your own business or with those of clients with Facebook advertising?
Like you said, you have to pay to play. That's the rule with Facebook. You just have to deal with that. So I don't like Facebook. I can't stand it. I think it's a waste of time. It just brings out the worst in everyone. I don't have a personal Facebook page anymore, and I haven't had that for quite a few years now, and it was amazing. It was one of the best things I did in my life. But I have pages. I have a fake profile so I can run my pages and other clients' pages. And like you said, the 1%. So if you think about how many followers you have organically, the reach to get to those people is going to be about 1%. And that just changed within the month. So it used to be 3 to 5%, and it's gone down just recently because Facebook changed their algorithm again.
Yeah.
So the things that are that they deem more important are things that your family and your close friends are sharing. So that's more important to them, and that's what they're putting as more important in your newsfeed. The things that you always see are if someone has a baby. That's the thing you're always going to see organically. Everything else you're going to have to really fight for.
God, dear, that's depressing. So no offense to parents or children, but I do not want to see babies in my feed unless they're baby cats or baby animals.
The algorithm can't seem to work that bit out yet. But I think it's depressing too. But then it's, if you think about, say, 6 or something years ago, where it was free and everyone was getting all this great organic content, it's the best way to get someone paying for a product is to get them addicted to something when it's free. So they got us all addicted, 6 to 10 years ago, and now we have to pay to be involved, and you're either paying for that with your information that you're giving them quite willingly, and so much information that a lot of people seem to share, or like for pages, you're putting that through with advertising money. And you have to do it. Like I said, there's just no way around it. And I would suggest with people, they start with a boosted post. So if you have a look when you post something, there'll be a little blue button at the bottom that'll say boost post. All you have to do is press that. You can put in an amount of money you want to pay, how long you want that to go for, who you want to target it to, like in a certain area. And that is the easiest thing that I suggest to all my clients. You need to be doing that at least $5 at least once a week. And there was quite a bit of discussion a few years ago when the algorithm changes first impacted pages, and a lot of people were saying that you need to be putting $5 on every single post that you put on Facebook. And a lot of people are saying, we can't afford that. We don't want to do that. What's the point in that? And the whole idea was they wanted people to be thinking of whether or not their post is relevant and whether or not it's actually going to be engaging or it's worthwhile to put on. So I would suggest to people, have that in your head. I don't agree with putting $5 to every post, but have it in your head. Is this post I'm about to post worth $5 per post? If it's not, don't be posting it.
Okay. What about excuse me, what about though in terms of sharing, like occasionally sharing other people's content? Because you might want to do that rather than, constantly sharing your own, like I think you mentioned, but would you be paying for that though? Like to share, an article that's on someone else or, a piece of content that's somebody else's or on someone else's site? Or will you just be focusing on your own?
Yeah. That's just going to be a bit ridiculous for most people to afford, I would say. But yeah, focus on your own content and the stuff that you want promoted the most. So for example, you've got a new product that's just come into the store, or you've got some new services you want to launch, or you've got an event coming up, or you want to sell tickets to something. There's sort of major things that you should probably put a major amount of money into. But on that point, you need to be sharing stuff from other people as well.
What about in terms of with Facebook advertising? I know one of the things can be trickier, I found tricky, is that you can get very targeted, which is great, so particularly like if you're a local business, you can very much hone in on, your local suburb, your local city, and that's great. But then again, you've got things like, so say you wanted to target someone who's interested in veganism. Is that too big? Like what advice can you offer in terms of that targeting? Because sometimes it seems like it can be really targeted and zoned in, and then other times it can seem like it's a bit broad, you know what I mean? If you're just clicking, people in this area, aged whatever, who are interested in veganism, for example, just as an off the cuff thing, or interested in fashion. So can you talk a little bit at all, or any little tips that we might not know about in terms of targeting?
I think you really need to find out about the different types of advertising first. So if you go into the advertising pages on Facebook, there's lots of different options that you can choose. So some are targeted to websites, targeted to events, targeted to apps. You need to work out which one works out first and just play around with things, work out what works for you. And this is another thing with getting used to analytics and what works. So if you're putting something online that you say you've really targeted, like vegan fashion in Melbourne, for example, and then you do another one that's focused to vegans in Melbourne, or vegans within a certain space in Melbourne, or vegans that like other pages that are around vegan places in Melbourne, work out which one works best for you. Like there's not everything works for everyone. And the more that you are actually aware of how well things work, or like say the return on investment, you'll work out what's best for you and what you should be putting more money towards, or the things you should be creating. So, for example, if you're posting a cute photo of your favorite customer's dog that comes in every week to get the dog biscuits, and that does really well, then okay, dog photos at the store are going to work really well. Maybe I'll put a bit more money onto that this week. Or the other things that don't work, work out why they don't work. Could you change something? Could you change the age, for example, is a good one to change. And yeah, like you said, specific areas. And just a lot of people just think, oh yeah, veganism, that's all I need. But that's sort of like saying, who's your target audience? Everyone. Well, it's not. So not every vegan is going to be interested in something you're sharing. So maybe you need to target it to, say, people that are interested in health. Or say, for example, like my Vegan Athletes book I just released. I had to get to know a lot of these fitness or working out related terms to be able to promote it in the best way, because that's not the scene that I'm in. But things like vegan gains, or fit inspiration, or fit spo, and these things that you just have to think outside the square a bit, or have a look at what other people use. I know it's a bit hard with Facebook, but if you have a look on Facebook and you see an ad come up for something in particular, you can click on something that'll say, why did I get this, or why is this showing up? And it'll tell you exactly why, because you're in this age bracket, you're in this area. Just have a look at what other people do.
That's a really helpful tip.
Well,
That's
thank you.
excellent. Thank you for that. That's great. No, and that's some really good advice there about. And like you say, it is a kind of it's obviously very beneficial to Facebook. It is a case of test and measure. And I think sometimes we just have to suck it up.
And really, there's a lot of stats that are going around saying that the majority of advertising you do online, only 50% of it actually works. So I don't know, try not to be disappointed and disillusioned by that.
Got it. Now, that's some really useful advice there. So at what stage, so for example, so there's, actually running your own Facebook ads, like with all the test and measure and the checking your analytics and everything. Again, that's a lot of time involved there. So what about if people want to hire a social media professional? So they've got a bit of a budget. At what stage is it advisable for a business to hire a social media professional?
Probably when, like you were saying before, it's taking you away from actually running your business. So when you should be focusing on other things and you're doing all the advertising sort of stuff. So if you think about years ago, businesses used to have a marketing team. You need to think about that as maybe an online marketing team nowadays. So do you need one of those? And normally that would come into, I'm spending way too much time on this, or I'm getting frustrated by the amount of time I'm spending and I'm not feeling as though I'm learning or feeling as though I'm understanding it. And that's what I really like to do nowadays, is to consult people and give appraisals and sit down one-on-one with someone and see their skill set, see where they're at. Can they use shortcuts on their computer? Can they copy and paste stuff? Can they even read well, or could they understand some sort of basic Facebook video with how to set up adverts? If they struggle with some of those sort of things, then maybe you need someone else to do it. And sometimes that can be your granddaughter or your grandson, It doesn't have to necessarily be someone who's professional, especially if you don't have the budget for it.
Got it. What should they look for if someone is ready to hire someone professionally? What should they look for in a social media professional or an online marketer?
I think, I guess the thing that I would say was you need to be someone that you can trust, someone that's very honest and upfront and transparent. And I think that's just people in general, but those are really important. And I gave a talk last week for a business, and there was quite a few other business people that came to it. And one of them was just saying that they do a video production company, and they noticed their competition runs something where we'll do your creation of video for you and we'll guarantee that you get this amount of views. So whenever someone's guaranteeing views or interaction, that would give me red flags. You can't.
It would me too.
That. You shouldn't be guaranteeing that. So I really had to do a bit of a hard debate with this lady to try and get her to see that that's not something she should be aiming towards. Just because her competitor is doing it, it's not something she should even be thinking about getting into. And you want someone that can say, I was telling her, for example, with an advertising campaign I'm just working on at the moment for a client, I went through at the beginning of the year and just pretty much went through Facebook, Twitter, and Google ads, and I would work out $20 for whatever the keywords are in this area gives you this, $50 gives you this, $100 gives you this, $200 gives you that. And I would literally take a screenshot of each of those things and send it on to my client. So that shows you the reach, and that can show you the potential people that could interact with it. But for anything other than that, anyone who's guaranteeing it, you don't want to be doing anything with them.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I mean, my partner Tracy and I, we get so many calls and emails from people promising to get you on the first page of Google and all this kind of thing, and they're getting more and more clever. They say, "Oh, I'm actually from Google," and then of course you find out no, that they're not. So in terms of that, I'm glad you touched on that guarantee. So what guarantees, if any, then should a business owner expect to get from hiring a social media or an online marketer? Because I guess in the view of business people is, look, I'm paying this person, and I'm paying for them for their skills and their efforts. So what guarantees, if any, should or could they expect to get?
Well, you should be getting someone that is honest and transparent with what they can do. So when someone's saying, I'm going to guarantee I'm getting this for you, how are you going to give me that? What are the ways that you're actually going to do this? And if you really ask those questions or really track back the source, you're going to find that they're going to pay someone to do it. And this is another tip I want to give to people. If you're paying to have, say, 1,000 or 10,000 new followers on a social media channel, they're not going to be targeted to what you want. They're going to be from random places all over the world that aren't related to what you want to do. And if you think about it, it might look good for people, but if you think about advertising, because you have to do advertising nowadays, especially on Facebook, you're pretty much wasting a hell of a lot of the money that you're putting into advertising, because it's going to go to some of those fake people. So that's the biggest reason I'd say for people not to purchase fans or purchase likes or followers or interaction. So that would be one thing I'd be asking. How are you saying this? And that, like I was giving that example before about screenshots, you can actually see that that's come, from wherever it is, from an advertising campaign that you were sort of setting up as a trial thing. That's a good example of what you can achieve for people. And I would also say just have a look what they do online for other clients and how other clients have gone, and ask people who they use. Like if you see some really good interaction, or you see some great work online, just say, oh, hey, who does that? Most people would be quite happy to share those things with you. And I think I would look for someone who would return emails or phone calls. That's always helpful.
Yes. Absolutely, it is.
Because people seem to forget about those things nowadays, with being connected to the whole world, that people don't seem to focus on those things that really matter, as in someone's listened to what I've said, or left a message or left an email, and they're responding to exactly what I said. So you want someone that oh, hey, if I send them this email and I'm freaking out because something happened on Facebook, I don't understand the advert, that they're going to get back to you in a pretty good amount of time, instead of you freaking out for a whole week until someone gets back to you.
Excellent. Good advice. Gosh, I know we're cramming a lot in here, and I know we're at 48 minutes already. So this is great. This is some really good information. But let's motor along a little bit now. So we've got, let's talk a bit about online etiquette then. What are some, which is another area that I know you specialise with and you work with people on, what are some of the mistakes you see businesses or brands do online, either on their social media or on their own sites, but in public?
Oh, just being mean is the biggest one, I think. And my biggest tip is act, don't react. So I don't understand why people need to get in full-on heated disagreements with people online. And that's not just personal. I'm talking about pages get into debates with people, or they see someone said something mean about them somewhere, so they need to get in and say something. Like, it's really not cool. I just don't understand how people get so attached to someone's opinion, of them. Like, to me, I guess I'm a bit detached with all that sort of stuff, and I guess a lot of people aren't. So I find that quite hard to understand sometimes. And, I've seen things go out of hand, and people making videos about people because they disagree with stuff, people writing blogs about people. I don't understand. Like, if I've got a problem with someone, I'll ring them up and say, hey, let's sort it out, and that's it. And I understand I'm better at communication than a lot of people. I understand I'm quite upfront and get to things quickly. I understand not everyone's like that, but we need to be really, really conscious of what we share and who's going to read your post. and just be nice.
That's really good advice. So if someone, and I think you're right, it is about that communication. I think as business owners, it's one of the skills that we have to develop is to communicate better with our staff, with our customers and online. So if someone say they get a bad, like someone goes on and they leave a really, crappy review, what should a business owner do?
Well, one thing, you need to respond ASAP. So like I was saying before, social media is social. You need to be on there. And the majority of people are using social media to leave reviews, to ask questions and leave feedback. So if you're not on there doing those sort of things, you need to do that. If you can't do it, if you don't have the time, you need to pay someone to do it. It's pretty simple. And if I just had someone I was consulting the other week, one of their biggest issues was they said, people will have a really good interaction with us, was a hotel. So they have really good interaction at the hotel, but they're not the ones who share things online. They don't share a review. And I said, well, when you get, someone that's saying, oh, I love the stay. I loved, everyone was really nice. I said, that's when you say, hey, we'd really love if you could put that feedback online, if you could put it on Facebook, put it on Google Plus, or even just send us an email or write something down that we could share on your behalf. And and they were saying that they had a few people recently who didn't even talk to them. When they left the hotel, everything was fine. But as soon as they get home, it's online. So they had no idea of that. And that's like a communication thing that, people are lacking in communicating with people properly nowadays. It's just interaction. And or it's not conversation, I guess, rather than interaction. And so I just said to them, when someone says something like that, someone says, oh, so-and-so didn't do what they were meant to, I was treated badly, you say, look, thank you for your feedback. If you'd like to call us on this number, if you'd like to message us privately, I'd like to find out more information about this, and we'd really like to follow this up with you. You need to listen to people. So when people have some sort of issue, they just want to feel as though they're being heard. And if you're not listening to them, that's a big issue, and you're going to stop everything there. And, nowadays it's really easy for people to go, if you don't give me my breakfast for free because I'm going to put it up all on social media. So it's really, really easy for negative things to just go everywhere.
It is. And I think that's really fantastic advice. I like the way that you said that you acknowledge it online so other people can see that you're taking it seriously, but you take it offline to actually resolve it rather than getting into a toing and froing online. So that's excellent advice. Now, you touched a bit earlier on events, because you say you've run several very successful events, the Green Earth event, environmental, vegan festivals, very successfully. Now, obviously, running an event, it's a great marketing tool, as we've seen for yourself. It raises your profile, your business, and your brand. So, what are some of the challenges involved in holding events?
Oh gosh, Katrina, everything's a challenge with events. Like, it really is. It's not a joke. I'm 100% serious. Every single thing related to an event is a challenge, and mostly that comes down to people and relying on people, volunteers, things like that is the biggest issues that you're going to have with events. Then there's like raising money, dealing with councils, getting the right paperwork and insurance and those sort of things that you need. Then there's weather. There's just so many variables. There's so many things that can go wrong. And you have to really think about whether you can do these things properly. And, I'd like to point out with my festivals, I did that full time, and I was able to do that full time. I don't have kids. I don't have a mortgage. I was working from home, so I didn't have to go anywhere to work. I didn't have to travel a long time to do that. I was able to focus on that 100% of my time, and that's what those things really need. And that's why things don't really work that well sometimes with other events, because it needs to be your priority.
What about for business owners who maybe want to hold a small event? Because I know you're talking about kind of, quite sort of like full-on festivals, perhaps with stalls and lots of stakeholders. What about if, say, a business or a brand, a bit like Leigh did, for example, like when he did like a little bit of a speaking tour. Like, so if they want to put on a little bit of a smaller sort of event where, they can kind of, perhaps gather some of their customers or potential customers together, what tips could you offer them?
Yeah, well, that's good as well. And you need someone who has the experience. That's why I organised and hosted that for him, because I've got that experience. And as someone who has, that was in particular Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, so who has tour experience as well. And it's a great idea. You have to think about things like money. So how much money are you going to put towards it? Like, you need to hire a space, you need to do some marketing, you might need some licenses or public liability. Are you going to provide food for people? That was the biggest issue actually with that cruelty-free super vegan lifestyle tour, was the food. So
that can often be a bit tricky. I found that as well with hosting like these small business events. It's like, okay, got to get that food sponsor locked in, otherwise what are people going to nibble?
And just little things like the more professional spaces that we wanted to use wouldn't allow us to have outside catering or vegan catering. So and it was a free event. We wanted people to attend a free event and donate money to the local animal sanctuaries. So we did not want to be spending a lot of money on things where we had a few people that gave us some discounted or free stock that was really helpful. But you can't put a lot of money towards something if you're not charging for it, for example. But I like what you asked. It's a great idea. It is a good marketing tool, and especially if, say, for example, Leigh and Sue live in the UK and this is an Australian business, so they need to be in the front line meeting people. And that was one of the suggestions I gave to them. You need to be here more often so people can see you. And, I think that worked really well. And then also, I filmed the event, and we filmed the Q&A, so that's online now, and they're also podcasts, so that can go across to different people as well. So that's also great for marketing, and especially having people involved in different areas. So you were involved in the Sydney one, and various people were in Melbourne and Brisbane. So it's just working with other people for that sort of common goal.
Excellent. Love that. Really good advice. Now, another great way of marketing is books, and you're the author of many books. You've got your recipe books, you've got your latest fabulous vegan athletes book, which contains, over 100 interviews with, vegan athletes and people into fitness, which is fantastic, both print and ebooks. Now, obviously having a book, great way, again, to position yourself as an expert, as well as to raise the profile of your brand. What benefits have you gained from being an author?
I think it sort of links with everything else, to be honest. So, a lot of people just focus primarily on social media now, but it's really important to have in-person promotion as well. And it's really, really important for email lists. And I'd like to point out to people that since 2005 was when I first did my first calendar for 2006. I was doing all the vegan events for many, many years. I had a bit of a break around just after my festival and when I was traveling a bit, but that was really important. So I think you need to utilize many different arenas and many different ways to promote yourself. And I think books are amazing because one, you have control over it, and it's in print format, and I read a lot. I love books. A lot of people don't find that hard to understand, but it's just amazing to have something in your hand. And I love, even still, like CDs I released years ago, just going through and flicking at it and going, hey, I created this, like, I love this. This is beautiful. Like, it's a pretty amazing thing to do and to achieve. And I guess I'm very goal focused as well, so it's just an accumulation. That book, my vegan athletes book, was an accumulation of 4 years of working on that. So that's pretty amazing to have it in your hand and go, hey, that was worth it.
And it gives you that credibility out in the marketplace.
It does give you credibility. And also, I think, you should write as much as you can if that's one of your skill sets. And, the more you have under your name or your brand, the better. And I feel once you get, like, that was my 4th print book, and I've had about maybe 6 other ebooks as well that aren't in print. But I find, and I've heard a few people mention it recently, the 4th book's like when you start sort of getting a bit more, not necessarily acknowledgement, but it's sort of, can't think of the word, sorry. It's more, just it moves everything.
Established.
Yeah, maybe more established, but it's just momentum. That's the word. Sorry. So you're getting a bit more momentum with your stuff. You know, first book, oh yeah, anyone can release a book. That's easy. First book, second book, oh yeah, maybe she's doing this publishing thing. By the 4th book, people are going, oh hey, she's actually a published author and she's done this a few times. She might know what she's talking about.
Exactly. Now, just on that then, so the majority, if not all of your books, you publish them through your own publishing company. Why did you choose to go this route, and what are some of the benefits of doing that?
Well, I guess it would be control would be the biggest thing for me, and I know exactly what I want to do, how I want to do it, the people I want to use. Like, I have a lot of creative friends, so I have got someone who'll take my photos, someone who'll design it for me, someone who can edit it for me. I know exactly with every single thing I've done how I want it to look and how I want it to be achieved, and then I just find the people to help me do that along the process. And so another major thing for me is if you get a publishing deal, unless you're like Stephen King or someone massive, you're not actually going to get someone that's going to do any publicity or marketing for you. So the biggest thing for most people is the publicity and the marketing of the book. So if you're not getting that and you're signing with someone, but they're taking away a lot of your rights or they're having control over a lot of things, I don't see the benefit in that. I've had quite a few friends who have been published with large publishing companies. The biggest incentive, if you can get like $1 million, $2 million advance from a book deal, hell yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
But anything else, I don't think it's worth it. And this goes down, like I've heard, you know, people were told at the beginning, oh yeah, you can choose the editor, you can choose, it's your final say, whatever, first go, doesn't work out like that.
Exactly.
And then
and often editors changed, and so whoever originally commissioned it, that can change, and the book becomes what's known in the trade as orphaned and all that kind of thing.
Exactly. And it's similar to like if you get signed to a publishing label or a music label in music, you know, the people that wanted to sign you or are really passionate about it in the AR and the artist and repertoire section, they move on or they get a better job, and they're left with some band they don't even care for, trying to work out how to use them.
Exactly.
You know, I think self-publishing, once you get the steps. So that's another thing. A lot of people asking me how to write books and how to publish them now. So that's another thing I'll be working on, especially next year. So how to write a book, how to get it all down, because I'm very good with time management, energy management, and all that sort of stuff. And and also how to create ebooks, so formatting ebooks and how to get them published. So that's another thing I'm working on at the moment, and I find it's interesting. I love learning new things. So if you don't, maybe that might be a bit harder. And I also feel like back on who publishes, there's a lot of larger publishing companies that say they're going to do all this stuff for you, and they do to some extent, but it's very expensive. So if you have a spare $1,000 or $2,000 that they can do everything for you, then go for it. That's great, you know. But I like the idea, I did this, I created it. Every single part of this is me. Like, it had nothing to do with anyone else except for the people that I asked for their help, you know.
Exactly, like the expert editors and the expert designers, etc. Now, that's wonderful. You've shared so much. We're just gone over an hour now, so we're going to wrap up there. That's been absolutely wonderful. You've shared some really, really fabulous advice, you know, around the social media, online marketing, because it is a bit of a minefield, both for, you know, new businesses and existing businesses. So really appreciate you sharing your wonderful advice and expertise. It's been lovely having you on the show. Thank you, Leigh-Chantelle.
Thank you, Katrina, and thanks everyone for listening.
So that was Leigh-Chantelle from Epicentre Equilibrium. You can find out more at epicentreequilibrium.com and leigh-chantelle.com. And you can find those links on the show notes page at veganbusinessmedia.com/podcasts and going to episode 44. Now for our Vegan Business News Roundup. Blossom du Jour, New York's largest vegan restaurant chain, has opened a new eatery that includes a soul lounge, reports Gothamist. Urban Vegan Kitchen includes on its menu a quarter-pounder burger made from a mushroom and barley patty topped with fried shallots, tomatoes, pickles, lettuce and sauce, plus optional avocado or shiitake bacon, plus other veganised versions of popular dishes including lasagna with sunflower tofu ricotta. That sounds absolutely lovely. Underneath the cafe is Chris's Cat House and Soul Lounge, a subterranean restaurant and bar that doubles as an event space. Music nights and education sessions are planned, and customers can kick back and enjoy a low-key space to listen to soul music, drink cocktails and enjoy their vegan eats. It's great to see vegan venues bring something extra to the table, pun intended, by making spaces appealing by mixing music, entertainment, creativity, education and food. By Chloe is continuing its rapid expansion with plans to open 2 more eateries in New York in 2017, one in Williamsburg, Brooklyn and another at the Rockefeller Center, reports Well and Good. The move follows the opening of the brand's dessert store Sweets by Chloe in Greenwich Village in September this year. The menu at the new eateries will feature some of the chain's most popular dishes, along with some new offerings specific to each location. By Chloe will also open at the Seaport in New York City, as well as Boston in 2017. It's amazing how quickly this brand is growing and mainstreaming vegan eating. It's incredibly popular. The first restaurant in Manhattan had queues around the block, and Miley Cyrus also popped in there and snapped a picture of herself on her Instagram. This is the kind of fast food we want to see taking over. Healthy, tasty, plant-based savouries and sweets. General Mills has announced it's launching a vegan soup line, reports Food Business News. Instead of dairy, beans and vegetable purees are used to create a creamy texture in the Progresso good-natured soups, which are also GMO-free and contain only natural preservatives. The 3 flavours are hearty tomato with spinach and roasted garlic, hearty corn and chipotle chowder, and hearty lentil with garden vegetables. Roger Galloway, marketing manager for Progresso, said, "We know that consumers are more interested in plant-based diets. With good-natured soups, we're celebrating vegetables and showing that beans are not boring and lentils can be fun." So this is a great move. So many soups, even vegetarian ones, contain dairy, and for a huge company like General Mills to recognise that more people are wanting animal-free foods is a step in a positive direction towards vegan world domination. After lodging a lawsuit against the vegan Just Mayo product and later dropping it, Unilever, maker of Hellmann's mayonnaise, brought out its own eggless spread. Now it's gone so far as to gain vegan certification for its product. The company, which continues to test its household products on animals, announced in a media release that the eggless spread had been certified vegan by Vegan Action, a national non-profit organisation in the US. Russell Lilly, marketing director at Hellmann's, said, "Our fans depend on us to deliver delicious tasting choices that stand up to their families' high taste standards and changing dietary preferences. We pride ourselves on always bringing out the best and are proud to be donning the certified vegan logo as a way to reinforce this commitment." What a turnaround. The news has been met, understandably, with mixed reactions from the animal rights and vegan communities, with some arguing that a company that tests on animals shouldn't be given a vegan certification, while others say that because the product itself is animal-free, it's fair enough to label it vegan. It's certainly interesting to see these large companies recognise the economic value of vegan products. Let's hope we can educate them on the ethics so they stop harming animals and make all their products vegan as well as cruelty-free. Finally, meat lovers in Dallas, Texas are up in arms about a vegan brisket, reports Wide Open Country. The entree at vegan eatery V Eats has caused a stir, with some locals arguing that a meat-free product shouldn't be allowed to be called brisket. Now, one of the reasons I'm including this in the news roundup is to show you how controversy is a good hook to get media coverage. This story has been shared in several outlets because the media love controversy. So have a think about whether your vegan product or service could have a controversial angle. You've got to be careful because it won't necessarily work with everything, but something like this is an easy win. So that's it for this episode of Vegan Business Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a review and rating on iTunes or any other platform you're listening on. Finally, I encourage you to head over to veganbusinessmedia.com, where you can find more resources, including details of my media and PR consultations, copywriting, editing and proofreading services to help you grow your vegan business. I'm Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business, and I look forward to catching up with you in the next episode of Vegan Business Talk. Bye for now.
Yeah.